Do you want to know how to hack a car and basically drive a car for free for 6 to 12 months? Well, let me show you. We get a lot of questions about this. How do you exactly do this? Let me give you the idea behind this in this video so you can start hacking cars yourself and own them the best way possible. First thing to understand is depreciation curves. You go to a website like caredge.com. I'll put a link in the description below. And you basically type in the make and model of your car and it'll pull up the depreciation curves. Let's go to those curves for a very common BMW, a 5 Series. In this curve, what you'll see is that, as usual, you get the most depreciation in the very first year. The curve is very steep. And as the car goes, the curve starts to flatten out. And in this example, to me, the best place to buy this car is between 5 and 6 years old. It's still a really, really good car. You're not going to typically have too many issues. Remember, always get a PPI. And if you don't know what that is, check out my other video on PPIs. If you buy a car that's 5 years old, but you get it for the price of a 6-year-old car, especially with low mileage, you're going to be able to sell that car 6 months to a year later and still basically sell it for the same price that you bought that car. And of course, you're going to have cost of ownership like insurance, taxes you have to pay, things like that. But you have to do that no matter what kind of car you buy. Even for a lease, you still have to pay those expenses. So remember, really just count expenses that are only related to hacking a car. If you have specific repairs you have to do or things like that, then yeah, that would be a difference between a hack and a regular purchase or a regular lease. But typically, all those other costs of ownership, you're going to have to pay anyways. So again, imagine that you can buy a very, very nice BMW 5 Series, buy it at year 5, pay for a car that's about 6 years old, and you can essentially drive that car for free for 6 to 12 months. Now let's look at some more depreciation curves of exotic cars, and you'll see exactly why I actually recommend driving exotic cars over regular cars. Now let's look at this depreciation curve for an Aston Martin Vantage, a freaking incredible car. Could you imagine driving that? This is the James Bond car. It's an amazing car. And what you'll notice here between years 5 and about 8, the depreciation curve is essentially flat. That's right. It's going to be so much easier to buy a 5-year-old car, pay a 6-year-old price, and really drive that car for free because those prices are almost identical. So that's why exotic cars are actually better, because typically when they hit about a 5-year mark, their depreciation curve flattens out for a couple of years, and that's the best place to buy them and own the car. The reason for this is because exotic cars are not mass produced, and there's always still a demand for these cars that are 5 or 6 years old. They hold up with their condition, they're almost like new cars, and often with these cars, they don't change the model as often. So if you're driving a 5-year-old Aston Martin in this case, it's almost the same as buying a brand new car. You can't even tell the difference. People who don't know about cars will not even know the difference. It's still an Aston Martin. You still get the credibility. You get the prestige of that car. Nobody knows that it's 5 years old. So again, you can see clearly here why cars like this are even better. Now let's look at one more example to prove the point I'm making here. Here's another car, an exotic car, a Rolls-Royce Ghost. This is one of the most baller cars that you can drive. This is an incredible car. This is one of the most luxury cars you can drive. It's an incredible vehicle. I've driven this car many times and I'm in love with this car. Now again, what you can see here is right between about year 5 and year 8, the depreciation curve is essentially flat. That's the best time to own this car because you're gonna be able to buy it and sell it for about the same price. Especially if you get one that has low miles and has a very good spec. There's a high demand for these cars. If you bought a 5-year-old one at the price of a 6-year-old one, and if you try to sell that car within 6 to 12 months, you're basically going to get the same amount of money you paid for it. This is the essence of car hacking, is understanding depreciation curves. Whatever car you're looking to buy, go in there and put it into caredge.com and you'll see the depreciation curve. Most cars hit at the bottom of the depreciation curve and they flatten out quite a bit. Exotic cars actually flatten out. Most regular cars don't quite flatten out. They still depreciate year over year because there's so many of them and they're mass produced. But these type of cars, there's a very high demand. They hold up in their condition incredibly well, and people are willing to pay for 5 or 6-year-old cars that are like a Rolls-Royce Ghost or an Aston Martin or a Ferrari or cars like this. So again, what would you rather drive? Would you rather drive a couple of year old BMW or a 5-year-old Bentley, a Ferrari, an Aston Martin, a Rolls-Royce? Those are the kind of cars you want to drive, and you're actually going to be paying less if you know how to do this right. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos in this important series.